Welcome to the Goddess Conference Conversations. In this space, we will connect with interesting personalities, presenters and artists from our international community and chat about the upcoming conference's topics and themes.
Oh, hello and welcome. It is so lovely to be with Elaine today here. My name is Katinka Soetens and I'm one of the co-organizers of the Goddess Conference in Glastonbury. So we are speaking with some of our beloved presenters, and it's a total honor for me to have Elayne Doughty with us in the conference with her amazing contributions, but also here today to just have a chat, priestess to priestess, woman to woman, and to share a little bit about our love for all things goddess and the importance of our work that we're bringing, really, why healing is the theme this year. Anyway, Elayne is a fantastic shining example for so many of us, really inspirational, and it is just lovely to have you here, Elayne.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you for having me. And I'm so excited to get to be part of the Goddess Conference again this year. So yeah, it's always a highlight of the year for me to come back to the UK and get to spend a bunch of time there and do the Goddess Conference amongst other things. So thank you for the invitation again.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. We love having you. What I particularly appreciate is that you are so gentle and humble in your ways of being with us. You know, it's not like there's no egoic kind of struggle at all. I love how you participate and then bring these amazing gifts that you offer. I mean, really, it is just wonderful. Absolutely wonderful.
Well,
thank you
thank
so
darling.
much for being a part of this.
Yeah. Oh, that makes my heart feel good.
Ah, and I know that you've been working for such a long time, really, to empower women and to bring back the priestess archetype, to really bring that into a modern context of what that means in a healthy way, in a generous, from the heart place, the way you are with us in the conference. You know, you really are bringing that. So maybe you can share a little bit about what the priestess path means for you.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, for me, that word priestess has been one that has followed me, I think, for the last 25 years. I think that's when I first sort of heard the word. And I remember when I first heard the word, and I think this is true for so many of us. It was like I had a dual reaction. It was like I had a momentary like, whoo, like a buzzing up and down my body of like, oh my gosh, what is that? I know something about that. And then simultaneously, I had this kind of repulsion, aversion, like, hell no, I'm not going anywhere near that, right? And I think that is something that, you know, I've literally worked with, I don't know, thousands and thousands of women who are going through the remembrance of the priestess path. And I think that's the number one thing that happens for so many of us. And I got really curious about that because I was like, what is that aversion? What is that fear or that kind of sense of like dread that comes up around that word? And so I started to really investigate it. And what I really realized was, wow, this social role and function, and I'll bring it into that, the social role and function of the priestess throughout history has been to be a spiritual leader within their communities, a figure that brings healing and connection, dream time, ritual, magic, all of these things that have been the denigrated feminine. And so for the last few thousand years, to be a priestess was not really a thing you wanted to be, because, you know, the priestesses alongside the witches, alongside the medicine women and the midwives, and anybody who was practicing what now is considered the occult, or, you know, the deep feminine arts. Well, we were hunted, right? We were eradicated. We were called heretics. We were burned at the stake. We were, you know, literally had targets on our backs. So is it any wonder, Katinka, that when we start to awaken our remembrance of these lineages, of these sacred gifts, whether that's being an oracle, a seer, a hands-on healer, somebody who transmits or is a sacred embodiment of the divine feminine, someone who is offering ceremony or ritual or working in deep levels of transformation with sound, with crystals, is it any wonder that what rises up within us, first and foremost, is this deep place that requires the healing of this feminine, of this priestess archetype. And so what happened for me about 15 years ago was I heard this internal voice. You know how we get these voices and we're like, it was like a mission. It's like, here's your assignment. And at the time I was a psychotherapist, and I was like, I had a busy full practice and I was doing a lot of healing work, but I heard this piece and it said, right, okay, it's time to train the priestesses. It's time to get out there in the world, and you're going to call this temple the Priestess Presence Temple. And I was like, no, I will call it anything other than that. Right? I'm a respectable therapist. I've been trained. I've got licenses after my, all the things. I was terrified of being kind of, typecast as one of these woo-woo women, right? Who've fallen off the edge of woo. By the way, something very interesting about the word woo that I just found out and I didn't know. In Chinese medicine, a woo is a shaman.
Yes.
Is a medicine healer, right? I just found this out and I was like, oh my gosh, that is where that word woo comes from. And yet we've taken that and denigrated it in the West and made it appear like it's something that cannot be trusted, or, all those things. So essentially what happened was then I kind of heard that message, and then I wrangled with it for quite a while. And then I realized there was no getting out of it. That was what I was going to do. And so I created, Priestess Presence as a temple, and now there are two mystery schools within that, the 𝗁𝗵𝗃 Mystery School and the Rosa Mystica Mystery School, two very different trainings and mystery school deep dives. And that's been the last literally 12 years of my life dedicated to that, and it's been amazing. And I'm still working and amazed every year when I bring all the women through that, through those offerings, that the first level of healing that we all have to do is the fear of being ostracized or shamed or humiliated or pushed out for our deep spiritual beliefs that are connected into the divine feminine. I think that that's, I'm sure you see the same in your work, but it's kind of like, it's the place where until we redress that balance and bring back the reverence and the dignity to the social role and function of priestess within our communities, we're going to continue to see a world that is really vastly out of balance and is really struggling in this late stage disease of patriarchy. And so that's really, when I think about that word priestess, I'm still dedicated, I'm still devoted to the reclamation of the dignity, the nobility, the respect, the heart, the truth of what it really means to walk that path.
Oh, totally. I'm sitting here going, yes, 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 in recognition, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I think that resistance that we all feel, and what that actually sits on. And the resonances of just that disempowerment that you're speaking into there of a long, long time. And coming out of that, and to not go into the reactive place, but to actually step into that sacred centered place, it's a wonderful thing. And it does attract ridicule, when still I meet people who I say I'm a priestess of the goddess, and they would say, what, a princess? What are you saying? The word is still not actually in the vocabulary, let alone the concept or the archetype, or what it actually means to live that.
That's right. And it takes a lot of courage to stand in something and reclaim the reverence and nobility of it when others still have projections. And this goes back and is really seeded in the witch hunts. I mean, this is really where it came from. And we think, well, the witch hunts took place, 1600s, like so many hundreds of years ago. But what's really clear to me is that puritanical, really from the realms of the Catholic fathers, the patriarchy and all of that, which was then superseded into our culture, is still happening. I mean, the fear of the occult, the fear of the dark, the fear of the feminine, the fear of our moon blood, the fear of our bodies, the fear of our sexuality, all of it, right?
Absolutely.
So when we talk about what needs healing, a lot needs healing in our culture. And I think you know, I love the idea that that word healing is really connected to wholing, to becoming whole, and to becoming holy. And what is it to become holy? Once again, it's to return back to our innate truth of who we actually are. And that is, in a large part, what I really believe the modern day priestess is up to, is we're healing that within ourselves, and then we're bringing it to our communities, and we're healing it in others, so that we can actually stand in a place of inherent self-worth. Because that's the real thing for me. That's the absolute heartbreak of this is, and I know you probably see this amongst many, many women, is what it really does to us is it really seeds in us a lack of worth that's intrinsic.
Yes.
Somehow believe that we're not worthy. Well, you've been targeted for a few thousand years and told you're not worthy, then you better believe that we have that script going on. And it's not just within one of us, that's a collective historical trauma of the feminine. And so, yeah, for me, there's a lot. I know the theme of this year's conference, it's all about healing. And so I'm here to be one who's standing for the healing of that, and to really, you know, I was talking to my teacher, who's Arielle Spilsbury, the founder of the 13 Moon
Oh,
Mystery
we
School.
love her. We adore her.
I know, right? And she was just here for the weekend, Katinka, and we were
Oh,
chatting about we were sitting in deep space, really, but we were talking about how we're in the, you know, in the joyful pursuit of blooming lotuses. And blooming lotuses means that we're really here to see you, all of us, step into the brilliant and amazing gifts that we all have, and to really be able to bring that forward to the world. And that in of itself is part of this healing. So yeah, it's so
beautiful.
beautiful.
Yeah, that's really great. And for us this year, the conference, a new cycle of 5 years of archetypes, the maiden year this year, bringing
Ah,
that golden thread of healing as that quality of the divine feminine that resonates through us and in us and out into the
mm.
world in so many different modalities. It's like really so huge, really. But
Mm.
coming from that divine presence within us. So yeah, maybe you could say a little bit about what you will be bringing to the conference, because I know you're doing a super gloriously exciting Fringe day,
I
which if
am.
people, you know, even if you can't come to the whole conference, then at least come and experience Elayne in her Fringe Day workshop.
Well, okay, so this year I am so excited in honor of the Maiden, in honor of the Maiden. I've come up with a day-long temple experience called the Ancient Miraphors, the Magdalene Rose Apothecary, a journey to awaken your medicine with 5 sacred oils. So one of the pieces that I carry as a priestess is that of being a scent priestess or a miraphor, which means that I have been trained and work with both hands-on healing, but really through the sacred holy oils. The miraphors were really around during the time of Mary Magdalene, and they were a sect of priestesses who were highly trained in the death mysteries, but not just in the death mysteries in the sense of the physical death, but death, rebirth mysteries. And so they worked with these incredible blends of holy oils upon the body, activating and awakening the different sacred centers, which we could understand as being chakras, right? The sacred centers of the body with the holy oils. Now, this is the thing about holy oils, is those plant spirits, the essences that are inside an essential oil, especially when it's blended, are like an aria that are quickening and awakening, we could say, our soul's evolution. My other teacher, Diana Dubrow, who is the one who initiated me and ordained me into this lineage, talks about them being the kiss of spirit on the body. And so we're going to be joining, isn't that stunning? So we're going to be joining together for this incredible time. We're going to be working with who are the Magdalenas, this 3,000-year-old sect of anointing priestesses and the miraphors. We're going to be weaving in the ancient lineages of the priestesses all over the world who carried these lineages of working with holy oils. And what we believe is that when scent and touch are offered in the sacred art of anointing, Katinka, that these are 2 of the most powerful sensory medicines. Now, this is what's real, right? Is that smell is one of our oldest and most ancient parts of our brain. It's connected into our amygdala, and it's where our memory is stored, our ancient memory. And so when we work with the sense of smell, and I don't know anybody who doesn't get with the essential oils and start to swoon. And there's a reason for that, because they are such refined essences that are vibrating at various different frequencies, many of them higher frequencies than our natural frequency of what most human beings are resonating at. So the technology of using oils in a sacred context is that we are raising our frequency, which means that we are able to contain more light, more embodied divine spirit inside this vessel. And if I could say one thing about, for me, the art and sacred technology of being a priestess is it's to become the vessel to ground light into matter on this planet and to marry the divine with the human. So the sacred oils were used in that divine human marriage relationship. The 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 is what we would call it, the sacred marriage within. And there's a lot to say about that in terms of the mysteries around that, both from the Magdalene order, but also through many, many different mystery schools way back through into ancient Egypt and Sumeria, and all of the history that we have around this marriage ceremony that wasn't just about marrying another, but about marrying the divine within. So we're going to be activating and awakening 5 different oils. And I'm not going to tell you which oils we're working with.
Keep it a secret.
That's the secret. But we are going to be working inside the Magdalene Rose Apothecary. And what that's going to be doing is awakening 5 different sacred oils and the healing properties of those oils, the spiritual dimension of those oils. So we think about oils having we can use them for physical and emotional ailments, right? To rebalance the physical, emotional body and the psychological body, but they're also spiritual dimensions to these oils. And so we're going to be working with the spiritual dimension of each one of these oils. We're going to be learning its holy name, learning its attributes, and then we're going to be interfacing with it through the sacred art of anointing. So that's what
I can't wait. I cannot wait. It sounds so yummy and so good. And thank you for bringing that. And that whole lineage, I think there's something around that, isn't it? The sense of scent, smell, as you said, are amazing senses anyway, but that one particularly is so evocative and so it takes you back to those lineages of the temple priestesses. And then again, as you say, from across culture, people have worked with these sacred oils in different places, different places, because different ingredients in different places.
That's right.
That
I mean,
beautiful work of sacred anointing, so delicious. And
so
very much working with that, what is the divine feminine? What is that? Is that somewhere out there? Is it somewhere? Is it the earth? Is it the oil? Is it the priestess? Is it the one who's anointed? What is it,
Yeah. We've tracked it back in the research that I've done and Diana's done is, there's over a 7,000-year history of oils being used medicinally or in sacred contexts. And that's coming through, obviously, we have the oldest text, which is, really the myth of Inanna, 3,500 BC, where obviously they were using oils then, but this is going back through more of the physical pictures that we have from ancient Egypt and on. And so we know that this combination of oils and sacred touch, of touch that's awakened. And we talk about awakening the hands of light, right? Which is what these hands are, with all the chakra points in them. And when the oils and your hands come together on the body with the intention and the prayer of blessing and healing and awakening, I've seen some of the most incredible healings and activations take place when I've been working with people on the table. Now, we won't be on massage tables for this event. We will be sitting in chairs, but we will be still working with anointing each other and working with the activation and remembrance of who you are as an ancient priestess, holding these lines of healing and holding that we all have access to.
Mm.
So, and not to mention, we'll be in a glorious aria of all these oils together, which are literally intoxicating and will uplift your spirit and connect you into all of those ancient ley lines. So it's going to be a gorgeous day.
Utterly, utterly delicious. Yes, it's going to be a gorgeous day. Ah,
Yummy.
thank you. Yeah, very yummy.
Yeah.
So, Elaine, for you, how do you feel that the goddess or the divine feminine has, you know, of course, changed you over the time of working with her and reclaiming these lineages and stepping into
Oh my
the
gosh.
dedication of being her priestess, but also
Yeah.
how she is changing in the people you work with? Is she still the same goddess as in the olden days, or is she a newer form? How is that for you?
Well, so it's a great question. I do think that we're in a moment of renaissance and remembrance of our ancient goddess traditions, and all of us who are drawn to this work and to all the amazing offerings that will be part of the Goddess Conference and that are every year, from the historical through to the very modern, right? We're spanning that realm of understanding where we come from, but also who we are now.
Mm.
I think it's a really important question. For me, the modern day priestess is one who is helping to reactivate. So I'm going to talk about it through the lens of archetypes, and archetypes are different, different to the divine goddess herself, right? Archetypes, I understand them to be the bridges to the goddess. But the archetypes, and particularly the archetype of priestess, I think is being reimagined through all of us. And I think that there is a very powerful ley line of remembrance of what it means to walk the path of the priestess that we can find through our remembrance and history. But then there's also that place in who is she now? And I wrote a book years and years ago called The Sacred Call of the Ancient Priestess. And in that book, I was really exploring this idea of the rebirth of an archetype of the alchemical priestess. And there's a section in the book where I say, I see her everywhere. And this is the truth, is I see the priestess archetype playing out in many, many ways in women who would never call themselves priestesses, but who are absolutely offering that service of what I consider to be a priestess. So I'd say, you know, I go to my hairdresser. My hairdresser is definitely a priestess. She understands the sacred context of adornment, of cutting hair, of the ritual of release, of cleansing and purifying, of being in this space of intimacy that is to do with one's hair. Now, you would never call her priestess, but she literally is doing so many of the things in ancient temples they would have done. Cleansing, washing, purifying, cutting away. I mean, really, it's quite extraordinary, right? So that's a great example. The other one I give is, you know, I see her in the doctor's office, literally as the one who's sitting at the desk, receiving all the people who are scared, having ailments, don't know what to do. And she's the gatekeeper, right? She's holding the space. So I see her there. I see her in the florist, the one who's making these beautiful adornments to go to weddings and funerals, to hold the space of beauty, to create something in the space that's holding a higher vibe frequency. I mean, I get chills when I just think about it, you know? So I charge us to start to look at it out of the box a bit, because in ancient times and in our memory, we're like, well, we all used to live in temples together and people used to come to us, and we were, you know, or we were on the outskirts of the village living in some, you know, caravan I always have that remember of living in some wagon by the, you know, by a lovely stream in these woods in somewhere in deepest, darkest Sussex, you know, you know what I mean? Like, which is where I'm from originally. You know, and so, but that's not the reality for us as modern day priestesses. Most of us as modern day priestesses are not part of an order where we're supported by our local community.
No.
We have to be in the world of commerce, and we're householders and we're family members, as well as being priestesses. We're in the world of having a job maybe that maybe isn't priestess, but we are bringing our priestessing to the job. You know, one of my favorite stories, Katinka, is, you know, I've trained a lot of women who work in many, many different professions but I've had a lot of, ironically, a lot of doctors and a lot of surgeons who've trained with me. And one of the most beautiful stories is that there was a surgeon, a sister who trained who's a surgeon, and she said to me, Kalila, she said, you won't believe what I've been doing. And I said, well, what have you been doing? And she said, so now before we go into surgery, I had the whole team who's going to be part of the surgery join together. We set sacred space in the operating theater. We choose the music we're going to be putting on. We say the prayers for the person and the blessings for the person. We call in their higher power, whatever that is, to be present. And she said, and we become a circle of protection.
Amazing.
I mean, that's
Isn't
what it
that
needs to
beautiful?
be. That's how it ought to be, right?
Yeah, of course.
That place of like, that's what's been missing for so many of us, is that ritual of calling in the energy.
Mm.
So when I think about the modern day priestess, it makes me excited because I know my priestesses that I've worked with and trained are in boardrooms, they're running their own businesses, they're out there as surgeons, teachers, lawyers, you know, doctors. They're everywhere in every different kind of profession, and they're bringing in this awareness of what it means to be in the role of priestess to so many different places. So, you know, that to me speaks to the archetype of the modern day priestess, that it's not just, and I think that's a very Aquarian kind of quality. Like when, as I'm sitting here, I'm feeling that kind of Aquarian energy of, you know, even the technology. I remember the day I sat in front, and it's amazing, right? Here we are on Zoom. I remember the day I sat in front of my computer, and this was 15 years ago, and I think Skype had just happened, but when you get on Skype and it would be like, you know, all pixelated and like, you know, weird. And I sat in front of my computer and I had this vision, and I was like, I looked into the computer and I was like, oh my gosh, it is the World Wide Web. This is our web. We are reconstituting the web of our connection.
Mm.
This is going to be huge, and we are going to be utilizing this technology to remember our psychic abilities to be able to be connected. And I absolutely know that that's what's happening. So, you know, our ancient sisters didn't have this interface. They had different interfaces. So we're working with the tools that we have now. And that is changing at light speed. Like what's happening in our culture now as the Aquarian age really starts to, you know, get its druthers under it, start to move forward, is we're seeing this extraordinary explosion of, you know, whether you love it or hate it or scared of it, AI, this whole thing. But I do believe there's a way to utilize it in service to a positive mission. I really do. I really do believe that we are being charged with that, and it's up to us, you know. So that is not the priestess of ancient law.
No.
That is the priestess of now. And I think that's really a great question. And I'd love to see, given that the topic of this year's conference is the Maiden, and the Maidens are a completely different generation than you and I, darling, right? That, I mean,
I know.
right? They're a completely different species almost. And that
Well,
is the
they're great teachers. They're great
right.
teachers.
Exactly. And so we have to listen to what they're bringing forward and how they're seeing it, because they've got their finger on the pulse in the way that, you know, you and I are starting to become the elders or whatever you want. I don't even know what to call myself anymore, but there I am at going the other direction, right? It's like, so I'm excited to see what bubbles up from us all being together around that question of like, well, who is she now? And what are we envisioning, and how are we visioning it? So
absolutely. Thank you for that great eloquence which you're speaking into this, and the beautiful recognition of this archetype, which is not just stuffed away somewhere in a little temple or a little church or a little monastery or something. Very much integrated with every aspect of life as that quality, really, of the sacred vessel, of the presence of Goddess in a particular way. It's very beautiful.
It's
Oh,
beautiful. And I think when we talk about feminine leadership and we talk about how we want to lead in the world, and the fact that we're, you know, so many of us now are able to step back into positions of leadership, whereas, even a generation ago, our mothers, certainly our grandmothers, were not able to in the same way. And many women all over the world still don't have that privilege. And that's really a massive thing to recognize. For those of us that do, I think that the priestess is a leadership archetype. She was always the leader of her communities in the way that she was connecting into the heartbeat of what the community actually needed, the healing, the visioning, the oracling, the seeing, all of that. And I think that that's a very powerful reclamation, is to recognize that that's a way of leading. It's not the way that we've been taught leadership looks, but it's a very different kind of leadership. And I'm always so curious about how I'm seeing women leading from within this frequency or archetype. So yeah, that's part
absolutely.
of the joy of getting together and hearing
It
all of our stories.
is. It is because, I mean, the leadership role is vital, I think, going
Right,
forwards. And
right,
it's not one leader. I mean, I think this is the other thing the priestess archetype really offers us, is that we are circle workers. We're not the
right.
lone head of a company or something,
That's
the one decision
right.
maker. No, we are circles of equals with different skills. And this is such a beautiful blueprint to bring. I'm so happy that you're going to come and be part of that again this year in the form of the Goddess Conference here in Glastonbury, darling.
My pleasure. Thank you, Katinka, for all the work that you and Marianne do I know it's a massive undertaking to bring all this together and have it happen. So I just bow to
Thank
you.
you. But also we are building this culture where we have circles within circles within circles. So yes, it's
That's right.
Marion and myself, but it's many other people as well. We're certainly not alone.
No, I know, but it takes, it takes the vision, and it takes the groundedness of, we have to hold the vision and then call all the people in to do what they're doing. So I appreciate that. And I understand this in a key part of it, because I certainly don't, with what I'm doing in the world, I could not do it all if there wasn't a whole host of other amazing priestess women bringing their gifts and weaving into the bigger picture with me. So that's one of the greatest joys, right? Is the healing of our sisterhood. And that's
Absolutely.
a whole nother subject that we could talk about, but we don't have time to
Let's
today.
do that another time.
Exactly, the wounds of our sisterhood, and how can we really heal those? What are the
That's
active
right.
ways?
I think that's definitely a part of the medicine for competition is
Oh my
cooperation.
gosh,
And
it's just
really, we are working in that in this conference as well, very much so, as
amazing.
one of the threads that she's weaving through us.
Well, blessed be. Well, I will get to see you very soon. It's coming right up now. We'll be there in just a moment. I'm sure it's like the year starts to move, with
Oh,
some
and speeds
velocity.
up.
Right? Once we get through
Sure.
spring equinox, it's all
Uphill or
totally.
downhill. Yeah.
Totally. Well, thank you, Katinka, and thank you to everybody who's listening. And I know my offering is on the Fringe, and it'll be, I guess it's the 28th of July,
Oh,
and
Lotus
it's
cat.
long. There's my temple cat trying to get in the picture. Yeah, she's crawling around the altar right now, which
Very
is what she
sweet.
likes to do. I know. So yeah, if it's in your joy and you're there, come along and join me. I'd love to meet you. All right. Beautiful. Blessings,
Lovely to
blessings.
see you.
You too, darling. Bye for
Thank you
now.
so much.
This interview was conducted by Katinka Soetens. Join us this year for the 29th Glastonbury Goddess Conference, a joyful gathering of goddess-loving people, a 6 days in-person event in Glastonbury, Avalon, running from Tuesday 30th July to Sunday 4th August 2024, with the fringe events starting from Sunday 28th July. This year the theme is the Goddess of Healing. It's our maiden year, the first year of a new 5-year cycle. International presenters, transformative workshops and experiences, deep ceremonies on the sacred land of Avalon, community, art, fun, and love for Goddess. Let your healing journey begin this year. Join us for the Glastonbury Goddess Conference, Goddess of Healing. There are so many options to participate: full conference tickets, weekend tickets, day tickets. Find what suits you best and get your ticket now at goddessconference.com.